Hello, welcome to Silver Wheel Tarot. We are going to be doing another live stream today, another study with me. We are currently reading the Tarot Reversals by Mary Kay Greer. So last week was our first live stream study session, and we covered basically a flip through of the book and it was the introduction. We went through the introduction. So today we are going to cover chapter 1. Next week we will probably cover the beginning section of chapter 2. So in a few weeks from now is when we will be getting into the actual card meanings. I also have a tarot enthusiast book club over on the app Fable. And so if you'd like to join there, we are just finishing up another book in that club, and I've decided to go ahead and add this book as the next book for that club. So it's a little bit of a head start here on YouTube. Going forward, if that works out really well, then I will start them at the same time, but I am going to find a way to sync them up so that if you'd like to follow along in the book group on Fable, you can do that. Or if you would like to just follow on YouTube, you can do that. That was Freya saying hi, sniffing my tea. So today I decided to go with something a little bit different than my usual go-to. So I decided to grab some pomegranate tea because we have the new moon coming up. So I thought that would be a really good one to go with, something a little bit different. So I have my tea here. Other supplies we have, what I have been using, you can use whatever works for you, is I have let me go ahead and I can just show you in this camera. Sorry, I'm getting used to having two cameras. I love these little tabs, and actually, did I forget a pen? I have one right here. The pen I use for these plastic tabs is the Sharpie Ultrafine. I find those work the best on the plastic ones so they don't smear or anything like that. And I have my fountain pen with purple ink in it and a notebook as well. So fountain pen, Sharpie, tabs, and a notebook. So typically what we'll do is we will read together silently for about 20 minutes. If you've pre-read the section that we're covering this week, then you can also reread parts of it or study or work on your notes, even flashcards. So another thing coming up in a few weeks as we start the section of the book that covers the cards, you may want to take a look forward and see if it is any information that you might like to create flashcards for. So I've decided for the purpose of doing these videos that I'm going to go ahead and make flashcards for this book. So I'll show you. I'm going to go ahead and flip over just because it's easier to do the desktop. Okay, so if you want to pre-prep your flashcards so that it is just a lot easier when you are studying and reading. So when I get to that section where we have the card information, since I'm going to do flashcards, I will probably have it pre-read, and then during the 20 minutes, I will fill out my flashcards. That's probably how I'm going to do it. Anyways, so the information in this book, I kind of looked ahead, is I would like to get 10 upright keywords and 10 reversals. She does have a lot of keywords for some of the cards, I noticed. So if there are more than 10, then I am going to reduce them to 10, because that way the flashcards are functional. I can actually get some value out of using them and be able to memorize 10 meanings, right? As opposed to say 20. And then I did these flashcards different than the ones I normally do because on the back side, I am going to write out her meaning of the shaman definition for the reversal meanings. So I really, really love her perspective of the connection of the reversal cards to the shamanistic perspective of it. And so I was going to write that down. So that's how I'm going to do it. And I've just basically prepped these cards. So just as an example, in case you want to pre-prep some for yourself. Flashcards aren't for everybody, but I find them an excellent tool if you are trying to learn and remember what you are reading. Anytime you write something down, it really helps with retention for a lot of people, that is, but maybe not everybody. Okay, so in a couple minutes here, we're going to get started on our first session of 20 minutes of reading. So I haven't pre-read this section, so I'm going to go ahead and take my notes while we're reading, all that good stuff. And then afterwards, we can have a discussion of that section and what's been read. If you are watching this in the follow-up, please feel free to put comments down in the comments section. And I do try to get to all the comments that people place on my videos. And we'll go from there. So, okay, let's go ahead and we're going to start on chapter 1, A Different Point of View. Happy reading. Helps if I put my glasses on. Okay, so that wraps up our first 20-minute session. Go ahead and fix the cameras here. Well, let's see here. See if I can figure out what I did with my camera. It has disappeared on me. There we go. There we go. Okay, that's better. Okay, so that wraps up our first 20 minutes of studying. I don't see any questions or comments in the comment section at this time. I know a lot of you at this time are following along on the replays, so that is fine. What I can do is let you know what I've read through. So I honestly didn't get very far because my mind is just really going, whoa, wait a second. So her perspective is really awesome. It's a little bit different for me, and I'm really trying to wrap my brain around it, and I absolutely love it. This may actually take some more thought. Actually, I'm gonna have to spend some time thinking about it. So I'll just tell you what I have in my notes so far, since we don't have anybody else on. So I found it interesting, her perspective that reversals, as basically, to paraphrase it, that she's basically saying that they're like a window into the other side. Um, for me, that would be like another form of shamanic journeying. Okay, because she's saying that for her, when she sees a reversal, it is like looking into the other side, the other world. Okay, so I have a very shamanistic style practice, spiritual practices, and so this is really resonating with me greatly. But I did put a note here that, but for me, basically that is how I see tarot in its entirety, anyways. But this concept of using it as a tool in a way of saying, okay, so the upright cards are your reality, right? But the reversal cards are then, they're applying to the other world or your soul, your spirituality. You could look at it as essentially the upright are your outer world and the reversed are applying to the inner world. That can be an exceptional tool in readings, to basically give context to the reading, um, so that you know without basically having to, I guess, like when I'm doing readings at this time, so I will look at a card, and at this time for a while now I've been reading with just upright. So this is going to get me back into reading with some reversals and playing with this whole concept as using it as a tool to see into the world in different ways. I mean, I love that, right? And again, with her concept of this reversal also referring to something that needs adjustment, some form of dis-ease or disease that needs healing, as in like a shamanistic style practice, soul healing that needs to take place. It's a fascinating concept. I am truly loving this. I am really enjoying it. Okay, so the other thing I have written down, so again, I have a lot of tabs, and most of the things that I'm tabbing, you'll see me tabbing things, are things that, um, most of these things that I'm agreeing with, that I really like the sentence or the concept, and I'm really finding a lot of that so far in her book. To be honest, I'm really resonating with her perspective and her style of reading, and her wisdom is really resonating with me, probably more than any other tarot author that I've read before. And so I have a lot of tabs, and probably what I'm going to do is go back and I might create some sort of notebook at some point and go back through the book and look at all the tabs. And what I'll typically do is like write down the sentences and the page numbers and put them in a notebook, because I don't like to leave tabs in my books, because if I come back to this book a year later or 2 years later or whenever, I like to look at it with fresh eyes, because every time you reread or you restudy something, depending on where you're at in life and what lessons you've learned and just where you are, you can get something completely different. You can read a book 10 times and get something completely different from it every single time. Also, I don't want to damage my books, so that's why I'm the type that, I'll use more of the tabs and the notebooks and stuff like that. And so I will, once I'm done studying, I will transcribe any information so that I can reference it later, and then remove my tabs. So if that's, I'm not sure if that's helpful to anyone else out there, but that's kind of my process. The other thing that I wrote down is, who is physicist Wolfgang Pauli? I haven't heard that name before. I have done some reading and studying up on Jung and his concepts and such, but she mentioned in here specifically that Carl Jung, in conjunction with physicist Wolfgang Pauli, developed a causal theory called synchronicity. So I hadn't heard this other name before, so that always, deepen anything that deepens my knowledge and understanding of things. I'm going to look into that. Okay, and then let's see, we have another minute or two before we start our next 20-minute session. We will get through the rest of chapter 1. What else did I put a tab on here? Okay, so I love that she put this in italics and really emphasize here. Know the basic meanings for each card, ranging from its most helpful to its most problematic possibilities. I couldn't agree with that more. I love that. That is one of the reasons why I like to study different books and decks and what keywords and phrases and meanings that they apply to the cards, which again would go back to the flashcards. And over time, as you are learning, it really just helps to then solidify your view of cards, what they mean, how they can appear in different types of readings. So, but yes, I mean, I really agree with that. A lot of new readers might only learn, it's part of the process, really, to learn some basic information. It's just the emphasis of expanding on that is really important. It's something I'd like to see more expressed in the tarot world, in the community, is the expansion of what you know. Yes, learn what you need to know, however you need to do it, in whatever method you do it to start learning the cards, but just don't stop, because it's just tarot. It's endless, the amount of wisdom and knowledge that you can gain through reading the cards in whatever application you're using it for. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our next 20-minute reading session. I'm going to hope that I can get through the rest of this. I've just been reading kind of slow because I'm just really absorbing the information. And we'll chat again after our next 20 minutes. Okay, I think that wraps it up for our last 20 minutes. So we can go into a discussion here. Soulful, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay, so we don't really have any other questions. I did not actually, in this second part of chapter 1, write down anything, but I did add quite a few tabs. I suppose we could go through those and see what I tabbed and why. Okay, let's see here. Yes, so I think it started here in this section where she discusses the Hanged Man, the art of reversing adversity. And I really liked here where she pointed out, I'll just read it from here. It says, again, referring to the shamanistic practices here. The archetypal therapist James Hillman points out that shamans do a one-legged dance and that this unnatural distortion or abnormal standpoint represents supernatural power. One is hindered, heroic, and magical. Loved that. And then she went on to say, I don't know how to say that name, that this person here, Mircea Iliad, once said, "We must die to one life to gain access to another." Yes, yes. So much about my practices and stuff are transformative, and I love that saying. And then she goes further to say, "A life, one must die to one life to gain access to another life, where participation in the sacred becomes possible." It is the suspension of the belief system of the ordinary reality that releases us into the next blossoming of the soul. And I just thought that was a very beautiful way of saying that. It fits a lot of experiences personally that I have had, and so I like the way she wrote that. Going into the history, I learned a couple of things here that I'll dive deeper into later. One was I just found it fascinating that she states here that Aliette was originally a seed and grain merchant. And I just find that very fascinating because there is really something to be said about seeds, right? We're getting ready to have spring here, and I'm already starting to look to see what seeds I want to grow. And I find it fascinating that his work was with seeds and that he's such a proficient tarot reader. I don't know if there's something else there to that, but I just found that fascinating. Another bit of information that I didn't know that was very cool was down here. It says, this is talking about reversals again, on the whole book's on reversals, but it states, "It is not surprising that dire warnings were the rule. Individuals felt buffeted by an incomprehensible fate, and with the prevalence of such sudden reversals in fortune, card reversals soon became known as ill-dignified." And then she states, "We shall see, however, that reversals can in fact remedy the difficulties of the upright interpretation." So all her, her concepts are very well linked together here. And I just did not know that during the time when Atea put out his tarot book, Entertain Yourself with a Deck of Cards Called Tarot, that with his reversal meanings, that the time in which that he did that was so hard for people that reversal cards in readings became known as ill-dignified. And I found that fascinating because the only other place that I have seen the use of the word dignified versus ill-dignified is in the book T, the Tarot, which she goes on to talk about in the next chapter, or the next paragraph, sorry, that Mathers wrote, and that's where we get the elemental dignities from. And it's mentioned dignified and ill-dignified in the information on reading elemental dignities in card pairs and card triples. So just knowing this bit of information has got me fascinated. Like, I'd like to go back and reread yet again book T and look at where they're mentioning dignified versus ill-dignified, because I think when I was reading through it the first time, I very much took that as, yes, positive and negative, and that is still the context that it's in. But knowing that that's in relation to reversal cards also during the timing of when things were written, I just would kind of like to reread it with a fresh set of eyes, knowing that bit of information, and see if anything new or different comes through. Yeah, so that was interesting. Just so much to think about and contemplate and try to apply in practice as well. So I'm really loving this book. What else did I mark? Okay, so she put here that the last technique for shuffling or selecting the cards, a technique taught by Eden Gray. Hey, Willem. Willem saying hello. Move along, buddy. Okay. He is a walking fur ball right now. I tell you, I don't know. He is just shedding. He walks by and already I like, all he has to do is walk by. There's cat fur everywhere. Anyways, back to this. I digress here. That the technique was taught by Eden Gray, and has the current shuffle the cards and with the left hand cut to the left in 3 piles. So I am aware of this. I use this, right? You shuffle, you cut into 3. And I actually did quite a bit of research within the last year trying to find as much information as I could about that method of shuffling and cutting the deck, because I couldn't seem to find a source material for where that was generated. And so I need to find, I don't have any books from Eden Gray, so I need to get those, because she basically is stating here that is a technique that was taught by Eden Gray. So maybe some of the more in-depth, I just, when I look at something, I like to know, yes, how to use it at first, but then I also like to know the inner workings of it, the why, when, how, like everything that I can. So the history of it, where it comes from, the source of the information, and why, it is the way it is. Okay. So this is great, because now I have a reference that I can look into, another a hole to dive down into and find more information. So I found it very interesting that she mentioned that the piles could be placed back in any order that they want, because I specifically was looking for that information, and everything I found, everything I could find that had a reference to shuffling, splitting the deck into 3 and restacking them, was to say, if you're shuffling the hand that you're cutting with. So say if it's the hand you're cutting with, if I'm cutting, and most people would cut with their left hand, so you would move towards the left. So if you were for some reason doing it with your right, you would move to the right. But anyways, if you cut into 3 stacks, then it's taking the first one and putting it back on top, and then the middle one on top. So essentially the middle one ends up being on the top always. But I couldn't find a source material for that being the method of it, or where that was generated. And so it's interesting that this is a method that Eden Gray taught, and that the mention here is that it can be replaced back together in any order by the person shuffling. So yeah, okay. Moving on, we had here just some comments, some different ways, not necessarily like ways that I agree with necessarily looking at reversals, not necessarily the authors either, but she was giving some different ways that people look at viewing the reversals. And so I liked to tab that information. And last but not least, what did we have here? Oh, this was about having many cards in reversal, like meaning different things. I never really put much stock into the concept of, really having everything be reversals, that you shouldn't read it, or that the person, like she said on here, one of the views was that it meant that they're depressed or dishonest and it may not be a good time to do the reading. But she did go to list here in the last paragraph what in multiples what they could mean. So for instance, if it's within the first two, the energy is strong and currently active. If there are more than 5 reversals, the situation is deep in the unconscious. 10 or more, it probably has little to no significance. So I like this type of information. This is something that I can play with in readings and see if it applies to the way that I read, or if it's something that I want to adopt, much like any other type of method that you would develop for reading over time as you learn the cards and you have experience with them. Certain things tend to mean certain things for different readers, but maybe not others, right? And so there was that. So that was the end of chapter 1. So next week, we will read the beginning section of chapter 2. I will probably read through it like I have been. I think I counted the pages. I'm a pretty slow reader. So the amount that I'm able to pretty much get through is about right for 2 sessions, 20 minutes. So we'll read that front section of chapter 2 next week. And then after that, we're going to go into the major arcana, into the cards, the card meanings. So this is where, again, if you didn't catch it in the beginning of the video, when we do get into the card meanings, I am probably going to read them ahead of time. And then during our quiet 20 minutes of studying, I am going to be creating flashcards. Just because in order to split this book up into the right number of sections to have it fit over, I don't want it to exceed, what I'm going to look through it, but 3 or 4 months, right? Because we're reading it once a week. So we're going to need to go through a little bit bigger chunks of reading than I can actually read in 40 minutes. Plus, I want to make flashcards for this book. So that's how I'm planning to do it. You can do whatever you like to do during the 20 minutes of study time. And then we have the discussion time that pretty much how it's been working is, if I don't have questions, I'm just kind of letting you guys know what stood out to me as I am reading. Usually it ends up being a lot more things to research and study, but I live for that. So, anyways, that's where we're at. Again, in about a week or so, I'm going to also be adding this to my book club over on Fable under Silver Wheel Tarot. The club is the Tarot Enthusiast. We are wrapping up another book this week. And then I believe next week I'll add this. I'll get the timing of them synced up so that anybody who wants to follow along on both the book club and on YouTube, you can do that. And you'll also be able to see from week to week what sections of the book we'll be reading each week. So it's planned ahead of time. That way you can choose to either read during the 20-minute sessions or study something else or read ahead of time if you'd like. So it's up to you. All right, you all. Thank you so much for joining me here. And let's see if I can fix my camera. Anyways, take my glasses off so I can see you all. But please do let me know if you are loving these study sessions. I am going to keep doing them through reading this book. I'm really enjoying it though, so I really think it's something I'm going to keep up with regardless. But yeah, let me know any thoughts, ideas, anything that you would find helpful in this process. I'm more than happy to, you know, switch things up a little bit as needed. And I guess I'll see you all next week. Thank you guys for watching.